There's a dangerous belief sitting inside many workplaces right now, and that is that performance and well-being are somehow opposites. That if you want to get high performance, people need to push harder, work longer, carry more, sacrifice. And if you focus too much on well-being, the people are going to become soft, less accountable, less productive. Have you ever heard that before? After working with thousands of leaders and organizations for more than 2 decades, I think we've been asking entirely the wrong question, because the best organizations I've seen, they don't force performance and they don't have well-being competing with it. They don't have this issue of them clashing. Instead, they design a culture where they coexist, where they work hand in hand, where people can perform really sustainably without absolutely destroying themselves and their life and their health and well-being in the process. Because burnout is not high performance and anxiety is not leadership. Exhaustion is not a sign of someone's commitment. And surviving your workplace should never, ever be a benchmark for success. The reality is this: when people feel psychologically unsafe, your performance is going to drop anyway, because trust will have disappeared, it will have eroded, and then communication starts to break down because people start withholding, they start thinking about, I shouldn't say that in case something happens. And then your leaders start to become emotionally reactive. They too become overwhelmed and often disconnected. And so all of those result in performance dropping. So you can see culture can never, ever be separate from results. Culture is what creates results. And every single day when I walk into leaders and organizations and teams, they're asking, how do we improve engagement? How do we retain good people? How do we lift accountability? How are we going to improve performance? What are we going to do to hit those new and ever more demanding KPIs? But often underneath those questions is something that goes a little bit deeper. People I can see are tired, they're disconnected, they're sick of change. They don't know how to do more because they're in survival mode. And you can't just keep wringing people out when there's nothing left in them. And so when you're asked to hit those KPIs whilst you're quietly carrying this stress and uncertainty and often emotional fatigue, then the pressure is just too much. And so your humans, your beautiful people and employees, and the system is eventually going to start leaking. And you're then going to see it in the turnover, in the conflict, in the disengagement, in the poor communication, in reactive leadership, in change fatigue. Because most of us aren't problems to be fixed. We don't have capability problems. We're not unengaged, disengaged, difficult employees. We're struggling with our own human sustainability. We're struggling with an economy that's tanking, with the pressures of life and home and kids and picking the school to go to and getting the car fixed, where all of that is added on top of our work. And so that's why the future of leadership can't be just about driving outcomes. It has to be about creating an environment and conditions where humans can absolutely thrive, where they can be achievement focused and achieve those outcomes, but without killing their dear little human soul in the process. And that's a completely different picture. That's where I choose to sit in my work, not in fluffy well-being initiatives that people don't pick up and run with, and nothing that's disconnected from the business reality of you have to make a profit in order to stay in business, but also not in pressure, but in high performance, where people don't burn out in the name of productivity, and where organizations get to stabilize and have this gentle tension between the two, where they're able to keep that sustained momentum going without stretching either too far. Like a rubber band, I think of it going twang. And instead we want that gentle tension, we want some tension for growth, but we don't want it so much that people are going to snap at any moment. And often I find that actually the healthiest teams are the most high performing teams over the longer term because their trust is stronger. They have good psychological safety. They have this high degree of emotional maturity, and that is actually super bankable. It improves their decision making, their collaboration, their innovation, and it means healthier cultures. And that means more sustainable success for you and your business. And this is the work that I undertake in steward eldership, where I certify people to become steward elders. It moves away from a leadership approach that's pressure and ego and urgency. And instead, it's about really deeply grounded responsibility. It's about long term thinking, as eldership suggests. It's about generational. It's about not just asking, how do we get to the latest results? How do we hit the targets for the next quarter? But it also asks, what's getting in the way of them? Because then we get to have deeper conversations about what's going on for your people. And if a system's starting to break, we can really dive into what's some of the human behavior, what are some of the factors that might be contributing to this. Human trust and human sustainability go hand in hand. And when a culture is treated as something that's alive, a living being, a living thing, and like all living things, it needs nutrients and water and to be nurtured and protected. So, as an organization, we want performance and well-being to coexist and not compete. And so that's the work, not above the leaders, not outside your culture, but right inside, right in walking with them and going, how do we maintain that little bit of tension, but without them breaking? You want your organization to be a place where people don't just survive, but absolutely thrive, and where they can sustain that over the long term. Isn't that what we all want, after all, in a workplace?